Every game has a set of game mechanics that make up the overall gameplay. Game mechanics, in essence, are what defines how a game works. It's a very broad term. It can apply to the objectives set for the player, the level design, how the weapons are utilized, or even how the resource management system like health and mana works. There is a set of mechanics that we expect from a game if it's a certain genre. If it's an arena shooter, we expect an arsenal of weapons to use and move from room to room, taking out armies of assorted enemy types. If it's a Metroidvania, we expect to find upgrades throughout the game like double jumps or dashes that will allow us to access new areas on the map. If it's a platformer, we expect an array of movement options to allow us to traverse and be creative. Adding in game mechanics that subvert the player's expectations or divvy up the gameplay loop from what is expected of the genre is where many games can shine or stand out versus their competitors. Obviously, it can also drag the game down. The mechanics I'm going to talk about in this video are very out there, so I'm not saying they make the game better or worse in every case, but they certainly make the games more interesting. This is just an excuse to ramble about some silly game mechanics from what I've been playing recently. So without further ado, let's start with what most people probably clicked on this video for. Rain World is a hard game to categorize. In fact, I made a whole video on that topic. But for the sake of simplification, it's a survival platformer with a side of ecosystem simulation. You control a creature aptly named a slugcat. At first, the movement and controls can feel very divisive. I saw that.
There's no... How do you control these fucking slugs? There's no nuance.
Slugs. You'll spend more time fighting the controls than making any meaningful progress. Made all the worse by all the deaths you will suffer at the hands of the environment and fauna. The truth is though, Rain World has one of the craziest and most satisfying movement systems in any game I've ever played. You see, Rain World is actually hiding sinister technology under what initially seems like a clunky and at times boring movement set. There is an 89-page Google document detailing Rain World's movement system. That is not a joke. I have 300 hours in the game and I'm still learning new mechanics to this day, whether they are intended mechanics or whatever this is. When you first play the game, vultures are terrifying. They almost feel like a boss battle. But look at this. They are useless. They can't catch me. When you learn even the most basic surface level movement tech, the entire map feels different. It almost feels like you are playing an entirely different game to those first few hours. Watch a speedrun and your perception of how you move throughout the map will be shattered. It is mind-blowing how a game can have an entire system hidden within it that most players will never use or even know about. None of this is shown on the Steam page. You could beat every campaign and not know about any of this. You'd only know if you accidentally pull it off or stumble upon the ancient scrolls. It just goes to show how insane Rain World really is. I still learn new stuff about it years and years later, and all of this combined with the ecosystem, this game is a miracle. The fact it can even exist is insane. Abiotic Factor is a survival crafting game released into early access in May 2024. It has heavy Half-Life vibes. I don't know if that's just me with the scientists and the environment, but to my knowledge it came out of nowhere and instantly became a sleeper hit. Speaking of sleeping, one of the game mechanics is sleeping, which in and of itself isn't a unique feature. You know, Minecraft, Terraria, Outer Wilds, etc, etc. But in Abiotic Factor, sleep is something you have to micromanage. It can affect your stats if you haven't slept in so long. But when you go to sleep, you find yourself doing this mini-game akin to the Google dinosaur game. Your results will determine your quality of sleep. It's such a small and silly thing, but I don't know why it fills me with so much joy to do the mini-game. And I think that's insane to be able to make a mechanic as monotonous as sleeping into a funny little game. They also have a shitting mini-game, but we won't get into that. The game is shaping up to be one of the best open-world survival crafting games in the enjoyment factor alone, but also just every aspect of the game is super strong, and it's supposed to launch out of early access later this year. Peripeteia, or Peripeteia? I have no idea how to pronounce that, is a first and third person role-playing immersive sim game, which is a fancy way of saying it's a game that allows you to approach situations in many different ways. You want to stealth? Go for it. You want to shoot everything in your path and make the game a lot harder on yourself? Knock yourself out. The game just released into early access and is a little rough around the edges, but it absolutely delivers in its atmosphere and vibes. The playable areas are absolutely massive, with many ways to traverse and approach any given scenario. The storage system feels like a minigame in and of itself, the gunplay is charming, and the range of weapons you can find is exciting. But all of this seems pretty stock standard for an immersive sim. Where's the quirky mechanic, you ask? Well, remember when I said the playable areas are absolutely massive? There is a way of making shortcuts between hotspots around the map, in the form of hacking doors. The hacking consists of you keyboard mashing. Literally. I mean, I guess you can be boring and try to guess the sentence or words, but it's much funner to just slam your keyboard until you've either figured it out or taken 5 screenshots, shadowplayed, and opened several softwares. The letter will be yellow if it is close, red if it's not, and green if it's right. Repeat until you have successfully hacked. You'll feel like any portrayal of a hacker in a Hollywood movie. Inanimate objects feel pain. Make sure to hit them against things as hard as you can. They deserve it. Psychopomp GOLD is a psychological horror, surreal, atmospheric, anime. Sorry, I'm just reading off the store tags because I have no idea how to describe this game to you. It is a solely unique experience. You talk to eccentric characters, explore strange locations, mainly under government buildings, do whatever this is. But one of the main mechanics is hammer. You know, one of the big 4. Inspect, talk, interact, and hammer. Because why not? There are illusory walls in this game, but they aren't really illusory. They're alive, and you must hammer them. This game is genuinely one of the most surrealist pieces of art I've ever gotten to experience. There isn't much else I can say about it without showing too much, so I highly recommend you jump in and hammer things. Cruel is a run-and-gun boomer shooter akin to titles like Post Void and Mullet Mad Jack. I love this little subgenre that's emerged in recent years, where you just have to keep moving and shooting or you die. You are in an apartment building that's on fire. If you are too slow, you will burn. The higher up in the building you get, the more dangerous the enemies and traps become. I beat the game in about 2 hours. It was a nice short experience and has decent replayability. The only thing I didn't really get was the gambling mechanic. At the end of each floor you have 3 options. Continue to the next floor, feed one of your cans to the dog, which gives you a roguelike-esque power-up, or you can gamble. Gamble how, you ask? I don't know. You enter a bathroom and the text says trick or treat. You knock on the bathroom stool and you get jump scared and die. I used the mechanic a few times throughout my time with the game, and from what I gather, it is a % chance to give you a can or to jump scare you and do damage, which in most cases would kill me. The cans are used as a heal within the levels, or traded for a permanent buff or ability in between them. The buffs are pretty good, but I found myself less and less likely to take the risk of gambling the higher I made it, as I didn't want to throw away all that progress. And I don't know what the percentage is, but most of the time I got the jump scare rather than the can. The game itself is absolutely kick-ass, but the one mechanic just felt almost out of place, or maybe not fully baked. Outside of that, I fully recommend the game if you are a fan of shooters. Endoparasitic 1 and 2 are survival horror games where you play as a man who has had 3 of his limbs ripped off, so now you are left to fend for yourself with only your right arm. This is made all the more immersive by the fact that you only need to use your mouse for every control in the game, using one hand in-game and one hand in real life. It kind of makes this weird juxtaposition where you can relax and lean back using only one hand, but the gameplay is stressful. You find guns to defend yourself against enemies, but you can only move when you're holstering them, so you have to decide when to crawl away and when to stop and shoot. This is made all the more intense by the fact that you have to manually reload your gun, bullet by bullet. There is a variety of ways you have to do this across multiple guns across both games. One of which is a lever-action shotgun, where you have to flick your mouse around after every shot to ready it for the next one. This is one of the most creative indie games I've played in a long while. It's such a simple but unique twist on the survival horror genre, and really pushes the limits of creativity in its control scheme and accessibility. There are a variety of ways to stand out amongst oversaturated genres, but I think the clearest is having addictive and creative game mechanics that in many cases can end up defining your game. Look at Ultrakill, for example. People don't just look at it as a boomer shooter, or I guess Zoomer shooter?
It's just, I get exhausted. My brain goes like, alright man, that's enough. There's no humans are supposed to be doing this.
It's the funny coin game, or the game where you can parry your own shotgun bullets as they come out of your gun. Or parry a cannonball, then blow said cannonball up into a nuclear blast. You get the picture. The game's unique mechanics have become a staple of its identity. It's one of many things that elevates Ultrakill beyond being defined by just its genre. There are thousands of shooter games out there, yet instead of fading into the masses, Ultrakill sticks out and demands attention. Thank you for watching, and I will leave you with a question. What is a game mechanic that was memorable to you?